Some relationships in Harry Potter burn bright like a Patronus, while others fall apart faster than Gilderoy Lockhart's resume. Some are built on obsession, some on loyalty. Some survive war, while others don't even survive school. What makes a couple actually work in the wizarding world? Is it passion, shared trauma, or just pure stubbornness? Does wand size really matter, or is it more about how you use it? Together, we'll explore and attempt to make sense of love in the Harry Potter universe, starting with the wizarding equivalent of Sid and Nancy, Bellatrix Lestrange and Tom Riddle. Bellatrix doesn't fall for Voldemort. She devotes herself to him. By the time we properly see them together, she's already fully consumed by his ideology, and by him personally. She believes in the cause, yes, but she also burns with the desire to see if Voldemort has anything under his robe to make up for his lack of a nose.
Will you stop that?
He who shall not be named, meanwhile, is he who shall not be tied down. His life is about power, control, and immortality, not domestic tranquility. Bellatrix gives loyalty and obsession, perfectly content to keep the relationship on the DL to appease Voldemort. The revelation of their child later on doesn't feel romantic. It feels strategic, unbalanced, cold, and vomit-inducing. Many fans still have not forgiven J.K. Rowling for introducing the idea of bald snake daddy having bald snake daddy sex into their lives. Tobias Snape and Eileen Prince. Long before Snape becomes the half-blood prince, he's a child stuck in a house where shouting is normal. Tobias Snape, a muggle, and Eileen Prince, a witch from an old family, somehow find each other. But whatever it is that draws them together doesn't last. Their home quickly becomes tense, volatile, and sometimes violent. You can almost see young Severus absorbing every argument like a little emo sponge, just counting down the days until he's old enough to write all about how much his life sucks in his journal. There's no warmth described, no sense that they function as a team. It feels like two unhappy people trapped together, each resenting something about the other's world. The relationship doesn't just fail quietly. It leaves damage behind that shapes who their son becomes. Tom Riddle Sr. and Merope Gaunt. Merope Gaunt's story starts with desperation. She grows up neglected and abused, clinging to the idea of Tom Riddle Sr. as her escape. Instead of building a relationship, she uses a love potion to force one. For a while, it works. They hook up, get married, and Merope gets pregnant with he who shall not be miscarried. It looks like a stable relationship from the outside, but once she stops giving Tom Riddle Sr. the potion, he leaves immediately. This tells you everything. There was never shared affection, never real choice, just control. It's one of the darkest foundations in the entire series. A relationship built on manipulation that ends the second free will returns. Bellatrix Lestrange and Rodolphus Lestrange. Bellatrix's marriage to Rodolphus Lestrange feels more like tradition than passion. As part of a pure-blood family, she marries within her circle, keeping the bloodline intact. But secretly, she longs for Voldemort. Rodolphus shares her loyalty to the Death Eaters and Voldemort, if not her desire to get her back blown out by the great Noseless One. So ideologically, they're aligned. But emotionally, Bellatrix's intensity is always directed elsewhere. Rodolphus barely registers in comparison. We don't see affection, partnership, or even much interaction. It's functional. It ticks the right boxes for status and belief, yet it never feels alive, especially next to the fire that burns in Bellatrix's loins for Voldemort. Albus Dumbledore and Gellert Grindelwald. Dumbledore and Grindelwald don't begin in darkness. They begin in brilliance. Two gifted teenagers meeting at exactly the right moment, bonding over big ideas and late-night rendezvous to compare wand size. They talk about wizard dominance for the greater good, and for a while, they're completely in sync. That's what makes it dangerous. Dumbledore sees the warning signs, but ignores them because Grindelwald is hot AF. Grindelwald doesn't hesitate. Their connection is real, intense, and wrapped up in ambition, as well as each other. By the time Ariana dies and everything fractures, it's clear that love and ideology were tangled together in a way that was never going to end safely. Severus Snape and Lily Evans. Before Hogwarts politics, before Death Eaters, it's just two kids in Spinner's End. Snape is the one who tells Lily she's a witch. Or was it a word that rhymes with witch? Anyhow, he opens the door to a world she didn't know existed. And for a while, they're inseparable. But once they get to school, things start to shift. Snape drifts toward darker influences, fascinated by power and acceptance from the wrong crowd. Lily grows in the opposite direction, toward popular hunk James Potter and his group of popular jerks. Their relationship falls apart with one word: No, not the C word. The Brits use that word the way Americans use dude. Instead, Snape calls Lily a mudblood. After that, there's no repairing their friendship. He never stops loving Lily, despite her kicking him to the curb. It's less a failed romance and more a friendship that couldn't survive pride, ideology, and racial slurs.
After all this time. Always.
Fridwulfa and Mr. Hagrid. A giantess and a wizard don't sound like the most obvious match. I'm not even sure how all the parts would fit together. But somehow, they build a family, at least for a few years. Rubeus Hagrid is born, and for a short time, they live together. Then, Fridwulfa leaves. She's disappointed her son isn't giant enough. Oddly, the same complaint she had regarding his father, and she returns to the mountains. Mr. Hagrid stays behind to raise their child alone. There's no dramatic betrayal here, just a clash of worlds. Giant culture and human values don't blend easily. The relationship fades. But its impact doesn't. Hagrid grows up craving belonging, and you can trace that straight back to a home that didn't quite hold together. Hermione Granger and Cormac McLaggen. This one starts with strategy, not sparks. Hermione invites McLaggen to Slughorn's party specifically to make Ron jealous. Cormac, confident to the point of arrogance, is more than happy to go. The evening quickly becomes exhausting. He talks about himself nonstop, boasts about Quidditch, and assumes far more intimacy than he's earned. Hermione spends most of the night trying to escape him. There's no real connection to build on. It's awkward, forced, and over almost as quickly as it begins. Sounds like me and my high school girlfriend after the prom. Ayo. If anything, it highlights Hermione's miscalculation. Using someone as a pawn rarely ends smoothly. Robert McGonagall and Isobel Ross. Minerva McGonagall's parents begin with secrecy. Isobel is a witch attending Hogwarts, while Robert believes she's simply at boarding school. Their relationship grows in the gaps between worlds. She eventually chooses him, even leaving the wizarding world behind to live as a muggle's wife. But hiding magic forever is no small burden. When Robert finally learns the truth, resentment creeps in. They love each other, but the strain of concealment never fully disappears. Not to mention the awkward power dynamic that happens when your wife can turn you into a frog every time you piss her off. It's a marriage built on devotion and sacrifice, yet shadowed by the cost of keeping a fundamental part of yourself hidden. Nagini and Credence Barebone. In the chaos of fantastic beasts, Nagini and Credence find comfort in each other. Get it? In each other? Heh. Both are outsiders. Both are isolated. She helps him escape the circus that exploits her. He leans on her while struggling with his identity and the obscurus inside him. For a while, they're steady together. Then Grindelwald enters the picture. Credence chooses power and answers over safety. Nagini refuses to follow him down that path. It's not explosive. It's quiet heartbreak. Two lonely people who could have built something, but get pulled apart by ambition and fear. It's just as well. Nagini eventually turns into a giant snake, and though I'm sure they would have tried, snakes and humans just don't work romantically. At least that's what I heard. I certainly wouldn't know from first-hand experience. What? No, I did not take my pet boa constrictor to the prom. Who told you that? Was it Mike? Ron Weasley and Lavender Brown. 6th year. Hormones everywhere. And suddenly, Ron is snogging Lavender Brown in every public corner of Hogwarts. That's kissing for the British impaired. For Lavender, it's exciting and intense. She genuinely likes him. For Ron, it starts as something else. Proving he can get a girlfriend. Proving something to Hermione. Proving something to himself. At first, it's flattering. Then, it's suffocating. Lavender wants constant affection and attention. Ron doesn't know how to handle that level of emotional intensity. So he does what any hormonal 16-year-old does when they want to avoid confrontation. He ghosts her. It's messy and dramatic like all teenage relationships. Nobody's evil here, just immature. It burns fast and fizzles out just as quickly. Harry Potter and Cho Chang. Harry's crush on Cho starts quietly during Quidditch matches. She's talented, kind, and slightly out of reach. By the time they actually get together, everything is complicated. Cedric's death hangs over them. Cho is grieving. Harry is traumatized. Their dates are awkward, emotional, and full of misunderstandings. Just like my bar mitzvah. She wants to talk about Cedric. Harry finds discussing other guys with his girlfriend kind of a boner killer, especially when they're dead. Jealousy creeps in from both sides. The attraction is real, but the timing is wrong. They never quite feel comfortable together. It's not that they dislike each other. They just aren't in the same emotional place when it matters most. Fleur Delacour and Roger Davies. The Yule Ball is where this one peaks. Roger Davies is completely captivated by Fleur, and being part Vila probably doesn't hurt. He can barely function around her. He stares. He misses his mouth while eating. He also misses the toilet bowl when he pees, but that one is less about Fleur and more about a crooked urethra. It's infatuation at full volume. Fleur enjoys the night, but it never seems deeper than that. There's no build-up afterward. No lingering attachment. It feels like one of those intense moments that only exists under fairy lights and formal robes. Impressive for an evening, forgettable by the next term. Cho Chang and Roger Davies. Cho and Roger have a history through Ravenclaw Quidditch. They know each other well, and there's clearly interest there. But the timing never works. She dates Cedric. Later, she dates Harry. When Roger asks again, she turns him down, only to regret it almost immediately. There's something frustratingly close about this pairing. They probably would have made sense together. Same house, same interests, familiar dynamic. Instead, hesitation and bad timing keep them from ever fully happening. It's less a failed relationship and more of a missed opportunity. Minerva McGonagall and Dougal McGregor. Before she becomes Professor McGonagall, she falls hard for a muggle named Dougal McGregor. They meet during a summer at home, and everything moves quickly. He proposes. She says yes. Then, reality hits. Marrying him would mean hiding her magic or giving up her ministry career. She's seen what that kind of secrecy did to her own parents, and she can only imagine how badly Dougal would react if he found out she secretly had a magic wand under her robe. She calls it off, devastating Dougal, and herself in the process. In the end, Minerva chose her identity and independence over romance. Slay, girly pop, slay. Sorry. I was told to try to appeal more to Gen Alpha in these videos. It's one of the few times in the series where love isn't enough, and that choice defines her. Skibbity Briz, or whatever. Cho Chang and Michael Corner. This one stems from emotional fallout. Michael has just broken up with Ginny. Cho has just ended things with Harry. So of course, the smartest thing for both of them to do is immediately jump into a new relationship. You can't hear it, but I just rolled my eyes when I said that. They find each other at a moment where both need distraction more than destiny. It lasts almost a full year, which suggests it wasn't meaningless. They share house pride, similar circles, and enough chemistry to keep things steady for a while. But it never feels central. When Cho graduates, the relationship fades without drama. It's the kind of pairing that helps you move forward rather than build a future. Queenie Goldstein and Jacob Kowalski. From the moment they meet in New York, there's instant warmth. Queenie can read minds, and she likes what she sees in Jacob. Jacob is open-hearted, funny, and completely enchanted by her world. Their affection feels effortless, until reality steps in. American wizarding law forbids their relationship. Yeah, America has a long history of telling certain groups they can't hook up with certain other groups. It's a whole thing. Jacob hesitates because he doesn't want her imprisoned. Queenie panics at the thought of losing him and uses a love potion. And we know how well that turned out for Voldemort's parents, don't we? That single decision changes everything. What starts as sweet and genuine becomes complicated by fear and desperation. You can feel the love there, but also the cracks. Ginny Weasley and Dean Thomas. Ginny and Dean are actually pretty solid for a while. They laugh easily, sneak around corridors, and seem genuinely comfortable together. She's confident and relaxed around him, and Dean treats her well, but he lacks the lightning bolt-shaped disfigurement she secretly craves. The issue isn't incompatibility, it's unfinished feelings. Harry is still somewhere in the background, even if neither says it outright. Small tensions creep in. A comment here, a moment there. Eventually, it ends in a way that feels more circumstantial than explosive. If Harry hadn't re-entered the picture, this might have lasted longer. At least until Dean realized he was dating a ginger and broke up with Ginny out of fear that she might steal his soul while he was sleeping.
I don't mind. That's great. Come here, my love.
Rubius Hagrid and Olympe Maxime. Two half-giants meeting at the Tri-Wizard Tournament feels almost inevitable. Hagrid is immediately smitten. He tries to impress her, sometimes awkwardly. Olympe is poised, proud, and a little defensive about her heritage. When Hagrid openly acknowledges their shared giant blood, she recoils. Pride gets in the way. But later, when they travel together to negotiate with giants, something steadier forms. Shared danger builds mutual respect. It's not overly dramatic, but it feels grounded. Once insecurity fades, what's left is understanding. Plus, they're both too damn big to date normal-sized folks. Kendra Dumbledore and Percival Dumbledore. Before tragedy defines them, they're simply a family in Godric's Hollow. 3 children. A quiet home. Then, Ariana's attacked by Muggle boys, and everything unravels. Percival retaliates and is sent to Azkaban, refusing to explain himself to protect his daughter. Kendra raises the children alone until Ariana's unstable magic accidentally kills her. If you ask me, Percival got the better deal. What stands out is their loyalty. Percival sacrifices his freedom. Kendra carries the burden in silence. Their relationship isn't undone by incompatibility. It's shattered by violence from outside, or, in Kendra's case, inside. The love is there. The world around them, including their own daughter, just doesn't let it survive. Angelina Johnson and Fred Weasley. What starts as years of Quidditch practice and shared Gryffindor chaos slowly turns into something more. Fred and Angelina always had the same competitive energy, that same confidence. By the time they go to the Yule Ball together, it feels natural rather than dramatic. They date quietly for a while, but the relationship never becomes the center of either of their stories. The war cuts everything short when Fred is killed during the Battle of Hogwarts. There's no messy breakup, no slow fade, just a dead twin with a smoking hole in his chest. It's one of those pairings that feels solid, but never gets the chance to fully become something bigger. Cho Chang and Cedric Diggory. Cedric and Cho make sense from the start. Both popular, both are talented at Quidditch, both are generally kind. Their relationship seems steady and uncomplicated, which is rare at Hogwarts. Harry's crush lingers in the background, but Cedric handles it with fairness. Nothing about them feels toxic or forced. Then, Cedric is murdered by Voldemort, essentially putting a pin in their relationship for the foreseeable future. But hey, at least the relationship didn't last long enough to fall apart organically. Glass half full, am I right? Angelina Johnson and George Weasley. After Fred's death, George and Angelina's worlds are permanently altered. Angelina gets over Fred's death by dating someone who looks just like him, and they build a family together. From the outside, it looks stable, if a bit creepy. Who hooks up with their dead sibling's girlfriend, for crying out loud? They run the joke shop, raise children, and move forward. But there's always a shadow there. George doesn't just lose a brother. He loses half of himself. Angelina steps into a life that will always include that absence. What makes this relationship work is resilience. It isn't flashy or dramatic. It's about rebuilding something steady after everything familiar has been torn away. Lucius Malfoy and Narcissa Malfoy. Lucius and Narcissa operate as a unit. They marry young, both raised in powerful pureblood families. Status matters to them. Influence matters. For years, they stand firmly behind Voldemort, mainly because if they stood in front of him, he wouldn't be able to see anything. But when Draco is forced into a task he can't handle, the cracks start to show. Narcissa's priority becomes her son, not the Dark Lord. She lies to Voldemort about Harry's death to protect Draco, and Lucius follows her lead. Whatever their flaws, supporting a genocidal madman, racism, etc., their loyalty to family is real. When everything collapses, that's the bond that keeps them intact. Leta Lestrange and Theseus Scamander. Leta's story is tangled from the beginning. Guilt, secrecy, and a childhood mistake that haunts her. She becomes engaged to Theseus Scamander, who genuinely cares for her and offers stability. On paper, it works. She's trying to outrun her past. He's steady. But unfortunately, she has unresolved feelings for his brother, Newt. Theseus represents safety, while Newt represents a childhood crush. In the end, it's all moot because Leta sacrifices herself to allow the brothers Scamander to escape Grindelwald, but not without further muddying the waters by proclaiming, "I love you," in the brothers' general direction before bursting into flames. Typical woman. She says something confusing and then burns to death before you can ask them what they meant. Hermione Granger and Victor Crumb. This one catches everyone off guard at the Yule Ball. Victor Crumb, international Quidditch star, chooses Hermione, frumpy Hogwarts know-it-all, instead of his obvious crowd of admirers. What follows is surprisingly gentle. He writes to her. He listens to her. He treats her like more than someone's sidekick. Hermione, for once, isn't the third wheel. She's the focus. Long distance becomes the quiet problem. Different schools, different lives, different futures. There's no explosive ending. It just slowly drifts. What stands out is how respectful it is. It works in the moment. It just isn't built for permanence. Newt Scamander and Leta Lestrange. Before chaos pulls them apart, Newt and Leta are awkward teenagers at Hogwarts. They bond over being outsiders. Newt accepts her strange, complicated personality without judgment. She, in turn, defends him when others don't. But guilt follows Leta into adulthood. She pushes Newt away, convinced she doesn't deserve him. By the time they meet again, everything is layered with what-ifs. And Leta is shrieking, shacking up with Newt's brother. Their connection never really disappears, but neither of them manages to rebuild it. It feels like unfinished business, rather than closure. Especially because Leta becomes a human barbecue before they can talk it out. Bill Weasley and Fleur Delacour. At first glance, it looks shallow. Beautiful Triwizard champion meets confident curse breaker. Everyone assumes it's about looks, until Fenrir Greyback attacks Bill, leaving him scarred for life. Fleur doesn't hesitate. She doesn't pull away. She doubles down. She tells everyone she's marrying Bill anyway. Hideous, disgusting, stomach-turning scars and all. That's when the relationship shifts from surface level to solid. Fleur proves that she's not there for status or charm. Bill proves he can be a hideous chud and still get chicks. They weather the war, host the order at Shell Cottage, and build a family afterward. It's steady, supportive, surprisingly grounded. Underneath the glamour, it's one of the most secure partnerships in the series. Neville Longbottom and Hannah Abbott. Neville's story starts with insecurity and ends with quiet confidence. Somewhere along that growth, he reconnects with Hannah Abbott. They both survive the war and decide to give love a shot. Hannah eventually runs the Leaky Cauldron, while Neville becomes the herbology professor at Hogwarts. It's not dramatic. It's not chaotic. Instead, their relationship is normal and frightfully dull. Kinda like Neville himself. Oh well, at least Hannah doesn't end up extra crispy like Newt's girlfriend. Percy Weasley and Audrey. Percy's early adulthood is defined by ambition. He distances himself from his family to climb the ministry ladder, valuing reputation over loyalty. By the time he reconciles with the Weasleys, he's changed. Audrey enters his life after the war, away from the chaos and ego-driven decisions. We don't see much of her, but what we do know suggests calm. She isn't caught up in rivalry or politics. Audrey helps Percy, once rigid and self-important, settle into a more balanced state. It's less about fireworks and more about growth. Draco Malfoy and Pansy Parkinson. At Hogwarts, Pansy is always close to Draco, defending him, laughing at his jokes, backing his opinions. She's the ultimate hype man. It feels like a natural pairing within Slytherin. They share status, worldview, social circles, and evil racist beliefs. Seriously, why does Hogwarts even keep the Slytherin house around? I'm not saying that all Slytherins are jerks, but in the Harry Potter universe, it sure seems like all jerks are Slytherins. Unfortunately, Pansy and Draco never take their relationship to the next level. During the Battle of Hogwarts, Pansy suggests handing Harry over to Voldemort, and the room turns against her. Draco doesn't exactly stand tall either. Whatever closeness existed never matures into adulthood. It reads like a school alliance built on environment rather than a deep connection. Percy Weasley and Penelope Clearwater. Before Percy becomes the ministry's most ambitious employee, he was a prefect with a secret. Penelope Clearwater, Ravenclaw prefect, was that secret. They keep their relationship quiet at first, partly because of school rules, partly because Percy likes control. It's neat, organized, very on brand for him. She's intelligent, composed, and clearly matches his academic drive. Any intimacy between the two prefects is no doubt by the book and extremely boring. We're talking lights off missionary at the very least. Then, Chamber of Secrets happens. Penelope is petrified, and Percy is shaken more than he lets on. After that, the relationship quietly fades. There's no scandal, no dramatic fallout. Just two high-achieving students heading in different directions. It feels genuine, just not permanent. Draco Malfoy and Astoria Greengrass. After the war, Draco is no longer the same boy sneering in corridors. He's seen what blind loyalty costs. Now, he saves his sneering for the pub like a proper adult. Astoria Greengrass enters Draco's life, giving him a fresh perspective on life. Less obsessed with blood status and repeating the past, and more obsessed with being a good boyfriend. Choosing her means choosing something quieter. They raise Scorpius without the pureblood superiority complex that Draco grew up with. That alone says a lot. Things are going great, until Astoria's early death from a family curse. It figures. Draco finally turns his life around and stops worrying about people's blood just in time to lose his wife to a blood malediction. What's the saying? Live by the blood, die by the blood? Luna Lovegood and Rolf Scamander. Luna has always lived slightly sideways from everyone else, to put it mildly. Or lived her life like a raging loon, if mild isn't your preferred flavor. Rolf Scamander, Newt's grandson, seems like someone who would actually understand that. They share curiosity about magical creatures, travel, and the unusual, making Luna and Rolf the perfect pair of weirdos. It doesn't feel like a loud, dramatic romance. It feels like two eccentric minds aligning. Luna never needed someone to ground her. She needed someone who wouldn't try to. From what we know, they build a family of weirdos and continue exploring the magical world together. It's soft, unconventional, and surprisingly fitting. Lily Evans and James Potter. Their story doesn't begin romantically. James spends years showing off, trying to impress her. namely by bullying her best friend, Severus Snape, and often failing spectacularly. Lily finds him arrogant. Over time, he grows up and realizes there are better ways to attract a female than teasing her weird little sidekick. He stops bullying, matures, and becomes someone Lily can actually respect. By 7th year, she chooses him, and once together, they're strong, united in the Order, committed to protecting their son. Their marriage is short but intense. It ends with both of them sacrificing their lives. What started as one-sided pursuit turns into a partnership built on shared courage. Alice Longbottom and Frank Longbottom. Frank and Alice are already established Aurors and Order members by the time the war intensifies. They're brave, capable, and clearly committed to each other. Then, Bellatrix Lestrange and some other Death Eaters torture the sanity right out of them. The tragedy here is brutal and sudden. Their love doesn't fade. It's stolen. They never betray each other. They never fracture. They endure until they physically can't anymore. What's left of them is kept alive at St. Mungo's, where their son Neville often visits them, carrying forward a legacy they can no longer live out themselves. Petunia Dursley and Vernon Dursley. Before Harry ever steps onto Privet Drive, Petunia and Vernon are already a perfectly matched pair. They meet at work, bond over their shared hatred of anything unusual, and quickly build a life centered on their narrow, boring view of normality. Vernon admires Petunia's tidiness and order, while Petunia finds comfort in Vernon's firm, predictable world. Eventually, they have boring, predictable sex and end up with a son, human toenail clipping, Dudley Dursley. Together, they create a bubble, one where magic is mocked and difference is rejected. That unity is real. The problem is what it's built upon. Their marriage thrives on exclusion. They support each other completely, but that support reinforces their world instincts. Stable? Yes. Kind? Not remotely. Minerva McGonagall and Elphinstone Urquhart. Later in life, long after heartbreak and career sacrifices, Minerva finally allows herself something softer. Elphinstone Urquhart proposes to her multiple times before she says yes. Eventually, he wears her down, the cornerstone of any healthy relationship. And when they do marry, it's quiet and content. They retire together, far from the constant chaos of Hogwarts. Then, a venomous tentacula bite takes him unexpectedly. If you're like me, you probably heard venomous tentacula and envisioned a cool-looking spider with squid tentacles instead of legs. Unfortunately, despite its badass name, venomous tentacula are boring old plants. Lame. Anyway, Minerva and Elephant Stone's relationship is brief compared to the rest of her life. But it's warm. There's no drama, no moral conflict. Just two older witches and wizards choosing companionship when they could have stayed alone. Newt Scamander and Tina Goldstein. Newt and Tina don't begin with sparks flying. They begin with mild irritation. Tina arrests him. He's awkward. She's frustrated. Yet somewhere in the middle of magical creature chaos, love blooms. Tina respects his empathy, and Newt admires her determination. They work well together because neither tries to overpower the other. There's hesitation and distance at times, especially when misunderstandings creep in, but it never fully derails them. By the time they marry and start a family, it feels earned. It's built on patience and shared values rather than instant chemistry. Isolde Serre and James Stewart. This pairing doesn't get much screen time, but its impact is huge. Isolde escapes a dark upbringing and finds James Stewart, a nomad who sees her for who she is rather than her bloodline. Together, they found Ivermorny. That alone says something about their partnership. They build something lasting. Not just a family, but a school. There's mutual respect there, a sense of shared purpose. It's less about grand romance and more about collaboration. They choose each other and then choose to create something meaningful side by side. Remus Lupin and Nymphadora Tonks. Remus resists this relationship from the start. He believes his lycanthropy makes him unworthy. Tonks doesn't agree. She finds werewolves hot and pursues him openly, even when he pulls away. When they finally marry, it's against the backdrop of war. Remus briefly panics, tries to leave when Tonks becomes pregnant, convinced he's doomed their child. Harry calls him out, and Remus returns. Though it's less because Harry confronts him, and more because he realizes he can't afford to pay child support on a teacher's salary. Their story is full of fear and devotion tangled together. They fight for each other, then die within hours of one another. It's tragic, messy, and undeniably real. Ted Tonks and Andromeda Black. Andromeda grows up in the Black family, surrounded by pure-blood obsession and strict expectation. Then she falls in love with Ted Tonks, a Muggle-born wizard. Choosing him means being burned off the family tapestry. Showing a healthy disdain for textile traditions, she chooses him anyway. Their marriage isn't flashy, but it's solid. They raise Nymphadora in a home that feels warmer than the one Andromeda left behind. Possibly because her father never let anyone adjust the thermostat, but don't quote me on that. When Voldemort rises again, Ted goes on the run and is eventually killed. What stands out is the courage behind Andromeda's initial decision to choose Ted Tonks in spite of her family's obsession with blood purity. Love over bloodline. It costs her status, but it gives her something better. A dead husband and a baby to raise on her own. Oh, wait, that didn't come out right. Arthur Weasley and Molly Weasley. Arthur and Molly meet at Hogwarts and build something that quietly becomes the emotional backbone of the series. An army of gingers, each more insufferable than the last. The Weasleys don't chase power or status. Instead, they grow a loud, chaotic, loving home. Arthur's curiosity about muggles balances Molly's fierce practicality. They argue occasionally, mostly about safety and the kids, but they move as a unit. During both wars, their house becomes a refuge. The burrow isn't impressive, but it's a living, breathing home that welcomes anyone and everyone. Their relationship isn't dramatic or tortured. It's consistent. Through danger, loss, and rebellion, they choose each other and their family every single time. Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. It starts with bickering. In the first year, she corrects him on the train, and he immediately finds her insufferable. But by Halloween, they're fighting a troll together, and something shifts. And I don't mean in Ron's robes. For years, the pair argues, trades eye rolls, and finds themselves in awkward moments neither of them quite knows how to handle. Ron feels second best next to Harry, while Hermione gets frustrated by Ron's insecurity and stubborn streak. But when it actually matters, they choose each other. He follows the spiders for her. She erases her parents' memories for the mission. They survive a war side by side. It's messy. It's loud. It would absolutely require communication skills they did not have at 15. But underneath all of it is loyalty. They grow into the relationship, rather than falling perfectly into it. J.K. Rowling deserves credit for subverting the obvious and not having Harry and Hermione end up together. Having the best friend end up with the main female protagonist just might be the one original thing Rowling does in the series. Wait a minute. Now that I think about it, she just copied Star Wars with Han Solo and Princess Leia. Darn it, Joanne. You're lucky George Lucas doesn't sue your butt. Harry Potter and Ginny Weasley. Ginny grew up with a crush. Harry grows up not noticing. Boys. What can I say? We're dumb. For years, she's shy around him. Then suddenly, she isn't. She dates other people, finds her confidence, and becomes her own person. That's when Harry starts seeing her properly. And I'm sure her going through puberty also had something to do with it. Their relationship in sixth year feels easy. Natural conversation. Shared humor. No forced drama. She understands the weight on his shoulders without trying to compete with it. When he breaks things off to protect her, she doesn't beg him to stay. She lets him go. That's the difference. After the war, there's no triangle, no unfinished business. They've both changed. Both matured. What makes them work isn't obsession. It's timing. And by the end, they're choosing each other as equals, not fantasy. And when you zoom out, you realize these aren't just relationships. They're turning points. Every couple connects to something bigger. Alliances, rivalries, entire bloodlines. So instead of looking at them two at a time, let's look at the bigger picture. Every family tree in Harry Potter explained.